There we go. Sorry. I don't know why my mic was off. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good. How are you?
I am tired, not retired.
Oh,
So I know this is an interview, and I recall one of your interviews during the pandemic. Luckily, this is a virtual interview because I remember you discussing with somebody else about Betty Davis said, what was it, today's interview is tomorrow's toilet paper. So luckily, nobody will be wiping their ass with this interview.
I
So
hope so.
well, people who say, what was it that with that technology will replace paper has never tried to wipe their ass with an iPad.
Right,
So,
exactly. Without getting blisters.
yeah. Hey, Sean. Here's one of my buddies, Sean, involved in the show. Okay, so tell us a little about yourself, Steve.
Well, I started doing stand up at the very beginning of the comedy craze, which was in 1972, when the Comedy Store had just opened. Uh, I was living. I was an assistant buyer in Budget Ladies handbags at the May Company, and I lived in an apartment building, and in the building uh, lived Dave Madden, who was Reuben on the Partridge Family, and Albert Hammond, who was a British songwriter that had come to America. So I'd be sitting around the pool and making people laugh, which is something I do naturally. And Dave Madden came up to me and he said, you could do this professionally. And there's this place called the Comedy Store. It just opened up. You should go down there. And then that night, Dave Madden and Albert Hammond brought me to the Comedy Store. And I sat in the audience and I watched what was going on. And I said, I could do that. I could. A week later, I came back with material and I got off stage, and Sammy Shore, who was the owner at the time, said to me, "You have the sound. You have that sound. You keep coming back." And because he said that, I came back every night for the next 2 years, and I became one of the regulars at the very beginning of this whole comedy. It was me and George Miller and Jay Leno and David Letterman and Tom Dreesen, Elaine Boozler, uh, David Brenner. We were all there at the very beginning. They
Wow.
were only, when I started, if there were 50 comedians in the
See,
country, there were a lot.
one of my friends, CJ says that one of those was Pauly Shore's dad. He says,
Yes, Sammy Shore is Pauly Shore's father. And I
interesting.
used to babysit for Pauly Shore.
Really,
Yeah,
I met
Pauly and Petey, his
I
brother.
met Paulie once. Him and Billy Zane were quite the characters together.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Yeah, he's hilarious. What's it called? It's funny. I don't come up with my own jokes. Very few, a little, not so often, but I like to make people laugh. Like
Mm.
I grew up with Tourette syndrome, so one of my ways is channeling is taking my pain and trying to, you know, bring up humor and try to make people laugh. So I bring up other jokes. Not ones from people I know, but I like to quote them. A lot of people in my generation, the generation, haven't heard them. So make people laugh, and I like bringing joy. So it's nice to see. It's nice to see that. So to bring that to people. So people tell me I should do stand ups. I know I'd rather just sit down. If anything, I'd rather play piano on stage, do like a Victor Borgia thing. Play piano, play piano, make a joke. Play piano, make a joke.
Or make a
Um,
joke out of playing the piano.
yeah, yeah, like a routine. Yeah, who doesn't love humor? Who doesn't love music? And when you could
My
combine the
mother,
two, it's
my mother
you
hated
hated humor or your humor.
both.
I don't mean, yeah,
Both.
really?
In the 35 years I worked, she never came to a single show. Not one.
Wow.
Not one.
S
She
I hope
always
you
had,
didn't take it too personally.
what?
I hope you didn't take it too personally.
Of course I did. It was my mother.
Oh, no, I know. I was trying to be on an up a higher, like a more bright, enlightening note on that one.
Yeah, no.
Um, but speaking of family, you told me your uncle. You mentioned earlier on to me your uncle is the one who built Adventureland on Long Island, right here. I used to go there
Long
as a kid.
Island, yes, Long Island.
Long
Uh,
Island, you can tell by my Long Island accent. Oh God.
Long Island. Yeah, Adventureland 110, I believe was the full name. And in Farmingdale, am I right?
Yes, Farmingdale, Farmingdale.
Yeah, and he and his neighbor Herb Buden, they got together and they came up with this idea of building an amusement park, and they had nothing, and they did built it from scratch.
I love those type of stories.
Yeah.
Something from nothing, and then it grows, and it still stands today. It's
Oh,
even.
it's he doesn't own it anymore. He
Oh,
sold it, uh, but it stands today, and it's bigger today than it ever was. And when they were constructing it, I actually held the end of the measuring tape when my uncle measured out the loop for the train. Uh, it had to be like 65 feet around so the train could make the loop. And I held the tape. My uncle measured it out.
wow. I remember when I was a little kid, when I'm going on the haunted house ride,
Mm.
and that oh god, that I'm dating myself now, but that's amazing. It's such a small world. I call it Jewish geography, whether you're Jewish or not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, one of my friends has a question. He says, "How did you learn to write jokes?"
Well, let's see. You don't learn how to write jokes. You either have the ability to write them or you don't. Now, I believe that
Okay.
there are two kinds of comedians. There's the kind that's intrinsically funny. That means they see the world a little differently than everybody else. David Brenner was an intrinsically funny comedian. David was walking down the street in New York City and a manhole cover blew 25 feet up in the air right in front of him. And David looked at it and went, heads.
That is amazing.
That's an intrinsically funny person who sees that. And then there are comedians who have learned that if you say 7 jokes in a row and 7 words in a row and stop, the audience will laugh. Those are technicians.
Like
But
Stephen Wright, I feel like is one of those, possibly.
well, I know I think Stephen Wright has an intrinsically funny attitude, and he has to be intrinsically funny to come
Right.
up with the kind of bizarre stuff that he comes up with.
You're
But
definitely
there
right
are
about that.
other,
Yeah.
uh, I know I hate to name names, but Rita Rudner to me is one of those technicians who's learned that if you say so many words in a row and stop, the audience will laugh. You also,
It's almost like a haiku approach in a
yeah,
sense.
yeah, it is. But I mean, you have to have the ability to know what will make someone laugh, but the ability to come up and create strange things is something it comes from here. It's
It's being able to see it from both the audience's point of view, but the creative point of view at the same time, I
I
guess.
think it's always from the creator's point of view.
Okay.
You have to create that image for the audience so that they understand. You take them down the road, right?
Right.
And then you tell them we're going straight, we're going straight, we're going straight, and then at the last minute you turn left, and that surprise is what makes them laugh.
It's almost like an approach to screenwriting in a sense, like telling a story, telling a good story, writing a book with a good story.
Well, I always say that a good stand-up act is a one-act play with a beginning, middle, and an end, and it's a conversation. You have to these words that you say 10,000 times in your career, you have to make it sound like you're saying it for the first time and that you're talking to each person in the audience individually, you know, and that's why most comedians, not all comedians, but most comedians are really good actors,
Yeah.
because they have that ability to recreate the newness of a conversation.
Yeah. I can't act, but I can act up or act out, I love, I'm one of those people that loves play on words, like dad jokes. Like one of my few originals was the only reason I have a way with words is because they had their way with me first.
Yeah,
It's okay, but
it's not a joke.
it's not a joke. It's like
No, it's a phrase.
it's a phrase. It's a play on words about play on words.
It almost makes too much sense to make a joke.
True. I hear that. I hear that. What's it called? I read you worked with Norman Lear, who I grew up on. Like my parents raised me right, classical music, classical movies, and classical rock. I grew up on classic TV. I binge watched The Golden Girls with my grandmother when I was in elementary school.
Mm.
I always appreciated decades of humor, like cinema and humor and entertainment. Like the Beatles were my first favorite band, Ed Sullivan and all that jazz. So I when I have to ask about that, like working with Norman Lear and what did you work with him on and what projects?
I worked on a show called A Year at the Top, which was with Greg Evigan and, oh God, David Letterman's musical director. What was his name? Uh, the shaved head. I can't remember his name.
I'm sure it's
Paul
uh,
Schaefer.
Paul
It,
Sha Oh, I
it,
know that name.
yes, it was a sitcom based on with Paul Schaefer and Greg Evigan, and we used to call it A Year at the Flop because uh, everything Norman touched was a smash hit, and this show was just a big bomb. It was just
Oh,
big it was about a show about two musicians who sold their soul to the devil, and it was very Faustian in its derivation, and it just had so many problems. Paul really isn't an actor. uh, we had an actor on the show who played the devil, who we didn't know at the time was in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. So he could remember nothing. So he would go get to the show early and write um, his lines on the set, on the furniture. So you'd see him and you'd be talking and he'd go, I know that I'm not going to be here much longer.
oh, I feel bad laughing.
Yeah, and so
It's like a built-in teleprompter in a sense.
yeah, and
Oh
so
God.
yeah, but but working with Norman was, it was amazing,
It's been a
because
pleasure, an honor.
because just the history that he brought to the table
Yeah.
was was amazing. And of course, I had a writing partner at the time who was Mary Willard, who was Fred Willard's wife at the time, and they stayed married, of course. And Mary and Fred and I were like this for the rest of their lives.
It's amazing.
It is.
I grew up on Mel Brooks. So I Norman Lear's worked with Mel Brooks, right? I'm not imagining
Oh
this,
yeah.
but yeah.
think I think that they were on your show of shows, but I may be wrong. They
I
were
have
in
to
the
look it
writing
up.
room of that. I may be wrong.
Yeah. Norman Lear's what, 99 now?
Yeah, he's old.
Yeah. He's but you know what? And anybody that, it's so interesting how with a lot of people over the recent years like have died at a very young age in the entertainment industry from all different forms, but the comedians live so long. It's just interesting. Betty White, even though she just recently passed away, God rest her soul, she lived till 99, just before her 100th birthday. Mel Brooks still going strong. Rich Little, who my cousin used to be an agent for, Um, was it Carl Reiner even, even though a lot of them they lasted for years. A lot of
Those
these.
people did, but, then there's a slew of young comics that
Oh,
died.
yeah, John Candy, Jim Belushi,
Yeah, those are comic
John
actors.
Rickles.
If you
Yeah,
well, Don Rickles was old. I'm
yeah.
talking about stand-up.
Okay,
You have to separate comedy actors from stand-up comedians.
you're
There are
right, you
two,
make a good
there
point.
are two different schools of 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 comedy,
Yeah,
truly.
Stephen Wright would be one of the stand-up ones, I would
Right.
assume.
Stephen
Yeah,
Wright's a
Stephen
stand-up
Wright.
in the true sense, and a writer. M-
Yeah, yeah,
Most most comics are good writers.
yeah.
You know, I've written 3 books, 8 plays, and 2 films, and I enjoyed that more than doing stand up. I really do.
It's interesting. I do video editing and photography and videography, but I'm more versed in video editing than I am in working in, on set with, though I've done it a lot, but I've been video editing since I was before I went to college. So although I'm more, what's the word? I'm not
More
just well
adept.
versed, more, yeah, I'm more skilled in video editing than I am with like certain filming aspects, even though I have but what I want to do overall is to be, I like the technical field. So I like to work on sets. I'm a very big people person with my Tourette's, and like I deal with Tourette's, and Tourette's usually comes with OCD, depression, anxiety. So I like to be around people. I like to work with people, and the creative field is something very important to me.
How does Tourette's manifest itself for you?
So it when I was okay, so I have to step back for this story. When I was very young, I had just vocal tics from 1st through 5th grade, and then as soon as in 5th grade, my motor tics, physical tics kicked in with a vengeance. So I had full body tics that just like I had to be homeschooled for half a year because I would lay on the floor, kick and punch desks. So my whole body would like it looked like I was having a seizure. But that was not all the time. It was frequent, but not all the time, not constant. In my late teen years, it be my full body tics went away, but I developed more smaller tics, but they're all the time, like more constant, like neck ticks, shoulder ticks, leg ticks, like it would be more constant. So, like when I'm around people now, like when I was younger, like when I was around people, it would happen. When I'm social, it would happen. I played piano almost 27 years. This August it'll be 27 years. I never gave it up. I took lessons for 15 and I still teach myself after all this time. But when I was young, I would sit down to practice and my tics would go away. But I would get nervous for an audience. But when my tics evolved and swapped, it became less full body tics and more smaller, more constant. I went from being nervous in front of an audience to being to having a rough time practicing. But when I play for an audience, the fear of screwing up psychologically takes over, and play better when I'm
Mm,
in front of an audience. When I'm in public, my tics are more under control, like almost subconsciously.
mm,
So when I'm working, when I'm social with friends, my friends always tell me, "Oh, your ticks look so much better." But I go through hell every day. Just most people don't see it. Very few of my friends have seen me in my worst state. And I
yeah,
believe it was the author Neil Gaiman who said, "Hell is not a place we go. It's something we carry around with us." And when with Tourette's, usually along comes OCD, ADHD, or anxiety. I don't have the ADHD, but I have some elements of it, and it's emotionally and physically and psychologically draining, but I deal with it. I live with it and I filter it through trying to make people laugh, not necessarily with my own jokes, but bringing joy, bring music. I love cinema. I believe anything that involves creativity, even anything has an aesthetic can be a form of art in someone's eyes.
mm,
And I always appreciate art for what it is, even if I don't consider it interesting. I Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not art. Some people think, oh, because they don't like it, it's not art. That's not how art works. You're not the art police. Um, so yeah, so my pain, I just developed even before I was diagnosed with Tourette's. Before I started playing piano, I loved cinema. I grew up when I was 5, I was introduced to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which
mm.
ironically was the film that got me into horror movies. I watched Bride of Frankenstein when I was 5 and probably House on Haunted Hill by the time I was 6. That was the first film to scare me, and I was a young kid brought up on these classics, and Vincent Price was, like, my first favorite actor. How many kids could say growing up Vincent Price was, like, their favorite actor
Mm.
growing up, you know?
Where did you go to school?
So I went to Hafter. Well, I went to Hafter for nursery and kindergarten. In kindergarten, I was bullied by not just my class, but my
No,
teachers.
college.
Oh,
You went
college.
to college.
Sorry, I'm
Not
dating myself.
that far.
Nassau County. Sorry, Nassau County. Nassau Community College. And then I went to Queens College, and then I went to School of Visual Arts. Actually, just a side note, my mother went to Queens College, and it was in Jerry Seinfeld's graduating class.
Oh,
And in
really?
my mother's yearbook is a photo of Jerry Seinfeld, Dean's List, theater major, mass communications, and he had that 70s long haircut he has.
Oh, that's funny.
She never knew him, but they were in the same graduating class. It's
I
just
went
funny.
I went to college with Henry Winkler,
I
and
met him. Very nice guy.
they're the best, absolutely the best. And
The Fonz.
Vin DeBona, who is the producer of America's Funniest Home Videos, and
Wow.
uh, oh, the actress from Second City. I can't. She was in the Greek wedding film. I can't remember. I'm so bad with names now. I've just and I know it. I know it like I know my own name, but because I'm being put under pressure to come up with it, I can't. When I when we sign off, it'll come to me.
Oh, yeah, that's always the case. It's always the case. Um,
Um,
I
so
want Oh, hold on. So CJ says, "Yeah, Matt Herrington were extremely nice and caring." Yeah, he's such a mensch in my opinion.
so
Uh,
who's CJ Robles?
so CJ is another one of the hosts on the show. So basically, I host Tuesday night. The overall podcast is called the Indiescape Network. My show is Cymbalistic Cynicism. It's a play on my last name, like play on words. CJ hosts Monday night's
Mm.
show. It's called Manic Mondays. He doesn't. He discusses like mental health and how it ties into film and art in general, like creativity, and because he also he's like a very creative mind, filmmaker and all that jazz. So it's like a team of people who appreciate and have struggled. We've all struggled to some point, but in some way. But like I think the most creative people are the people who've
You
in
know,
some of
I
the
was once sitting around a table with a bunch of comedians, and I just said, "Anybody have a happy childhood?" And
exactly.
nobody had one. One person had the father died, another one the mother died, then there was a house fire, and then there was a kid who was in a body cast from an early age, and there was always some kind of trauma. And I think from tragedy comes comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm listen, I can't be a comedian. I don't do stand up, but I just like to make people laugh. Even I know I'm not gonna do it professionally. Here, CJ says here, it's my Manic Mondays where mental health and movies meet. I love that. I love that. Yeah, he's a good guy, a very good guy, and we never listen. We all channel our pain differently, and I love coming together with people, who just love to transform their pain into something beneficial, whether it be for others or themselves or both.
Well, I was retired and very happily retired. Uh, and I got approached by some producers from the YouTube network, and they asked if I'd be interested in doing a talk show. And I said, "Do I have to leave the house?" They said, "No, you can do it from now." So
Remote. Yeah.
I've got a talk show on YouTube called "Let Me Say This About That," and I interview comedians, actors, people in the news, and we're getting about 11,000 views a show.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty, and I don't have to leave the house, and I'm only interviewing friends, so I don't have to do too much research.
That's great.
you know. So it's really turned into something nice. So that it's every other Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, um, and it's called "Let Me Say This About That," and it's on the YouTube network.
I gotta subscribe. Steve, is it just the channel Steve Bluestein?
No,
It's
it's
called. Let's just say this about that.
"Let Me Say
Let
This."
me say.
Let me
Okay,
say this about that. Just Google that.
I'll Google that. Yeah, I'll YouTube it.
Yeah,
Well, YouTube was bought by Google, so it'll be easier to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And and like I said before, since I've been retired, I've been doing a lot of writing. So I've written these 3 books, and Memoir of a Nobody has just gotten rave reviews. Uh,
Right.
and so that's available. And all my books are available on
Amazon and
Amazon. Yeah, I had a I had a publisher, and I had self-published one book, and it was titled "It's So Hard to Type with a Gun in My Mouth." And when I got a publisher, he didn't want to publish a book with "gun" in the title. So so
oh, I see what you mean. It's, I from a marketing point of view.
right. So we changed it to "Memoir of a Nobody,"
Ah,
and
okay.
it's like it was like number 1 on Amazon for like 3 days.
Say that's still something to be number one on Amazon.
Yeah, and I'm in shock that it's still selling. You know,
Yeah.
it's still selling after 2 years.
Can I tell you, we're our own worst critic. You'd be
Yeah,
yeah. I just wanna say, my friend, CJ says, "Hey, that's my show Blueprint. I interview friends for the I forgot to yeah, CJ does that on his show. He interviews some of his own friends who, struggle with something for the sake of, but obviously a little different than yours, but still, it's the same approach.
mhm.
He also said, "I am also an improv actor that is branching out to stand up. I want to write jokes. I love learning from experiences. I'm picking your brain." He also, and part of that, he did ask, and I understand why he asked that. He says, "Steve, how was the first time you bombed on stage? Or did you ever, I guess?"
Oh, of course, everybody bombs.
Right. Yeah.
But the worst bomb ever had, I was opening for Kenny Loggins
Hmm.
at the Sahara Hotel up in California, Lake. This is you're interviewing a senile old man.
Can I tell you something? I can remember something from 25 years ago. I'll forget what happened last
I,
weekend.
I can sing you the song from the Bob Hope. Uh, There's the grass is always greener on the other. That's from when I was 5 years old. I can't tell you where I played.
I can
3 years.
remember Alan Sherman's song word for word. I used to sing since I was 11, and
Yeah,
I'll forget stuff from the other day.
yeah, me too. So, anyways, and I would hearing all week. Sunday night is the employee show. The employee show. And the employee show is always the fun show. You can be a little bit more relaxed. And so I was really looking forward to the employee show. Sunday night comes, and the place is packed, 4,000 people, and the lights come down, the music goes up, and ladies and gentlemen, the Sahara is proud to present Kenny Loggins. And the crowd goes, well, with the comedy of boo, 4,000 people booing. They never even got my name out.
Oy vey.
And I got on stage, and 4,000 people were talking. No one was listening. A
Oy.
girl crawled up on the stage, and she was crawling on the apron of the stage. And she got to me, and she tapped me on the leg and said, "Get out of the way." She wanted to get backstage to Kenny. It was a nightmare. And so I was supposed to do 20 minutes, and I said, Okay, that's 20. And I got off.
Oy.
And the stage manager came up to me and he said, "Congratulations. You just did 9 minutes." I said, "Well, it felt like 20."
Well, okay, that's what you said. There were two types of comedians. That sounds like what's the guy? What was the first type you said? The term you used?
Well, there's the intrinsically funny comedian.
That's what you seemed like because, like, you looked at it like, well, that's 20 minutes, and then like it's like, well, it felt like 20 minutes, and like you
Yeah.
looked at it with that point of view, so that
Yeah, I
you
mean, I was just there to do a job. If they weren't listening, that wasn't my fault. But it was pretty devastating, you know.
yeah.
It was pretty devastating.
But listen, we what was it like? We all. It's not failing. It's
Excuse me.
what's the term? We fail by we fail by we succeed by succeed by not failing, or
I don't know.
I forgot the term. But like, yeah.
All I know is I've just bought this house.
CJ says, "Hey, the check's still in the mail."
No, it wasn't in the mail. I got it before I left the hotel. I just bought this house out in the desert up in Palm Springs, and I'm allergic to everything out here.
Oh God,
I didn't know that. I'm
I'm
allergic.
allergic. My allergies all year round. I got you.
So I've been left with this cough, which is not COVID and it's not lung cancer because
I
I've had enough doctor's appointments. But
I got you. Yeah, I listen. I have coughing tics. So every time I have a one of my Tourette's is a coughing tic. It's when I'm so when I was in college during the Ebola thing, everybody thought I was sick, and now I'm so self conscious of it because as soon as I have a single verbal tic, people get the wrong idea, and I get self conscious, and it's like a whole loop of being uncomfortable and being self
well,
conscious of it. Yeah.
there's two of my friends. One of them is one of the most famous comedy film writers, has facial tics,
Really?
and that never stopped him. And and then there's the comedy writer with cerebral palsy, never
Yeah.
stopped him.
I have
So
friends with cerebral palsy who have such a hard life, but they still enjoy it. I have a friend who's been in a wheel who's cerebral palsy. She lost her mother the other year. She's long story short, she's in a very hard time, but she still finds joy in her days. And
yeah,
she has it rougher than most, but she had whatever. So she's just a very strong girl, very strong person.
so ask another question. That's how
You
it works. You
Yeah.
ask.
No, I know. What was it called? So I was listening to a story talking about a movie you did with what was it, Lauren Bacall?
Yeah,
And
I was
what
I was in a movie called Perfect Gentleman with Lauren Bacall, and it was I had done other films, California Shakes, and They Call Me Bruce. I had done some other films, but Rabbit Test with Joan Rivers,
Oh,
and
Joan Rivers is
um,
great.
and I had closed, let's say, on Monday at the MGM Grand. I was opening for Donna Summer, and then I had to fly to New York on Tuesday and do this film. So I was exhausted, you know, I was exhausted when I got to the set. And, I thought, well, you're a big shot and now you're in show business and you're doing a film and people will be kind to you. And they gave me a trailer and I got in and the makeup, the wardrobe lady said, "Come get your costume." And I said, "Listen, is there any possibility? Could you bring it to me? Because I'm exhausted." And she said, "Who in the hell do you think you are? Welcome to show business." So
Sounds like a Brooklyn attitude to me.
yeah, and then I met Lauren Bacall, who when I walked into the makeup tent, and she was standing up and throwing makeup sponges, and eyeliner on the thing, and she's looking at herself and saying, "Well, I guess this will have to do." And she leaves and she storms out of the tent. and the makeup girl sits in the chair and starts to cry. And I'm standing there on the side. She looks over and she says, "What do you want? Blusher? I don't know." So she threw me in the chair and put some makeup on me. I just hate show business.
I
I
hear.
just
Listen,
hate it.
you can enjoy what you do, you don't have to like the industry you're in, you know, like, you can enjoy doing it, you don't have to like the
Well,
atmosphere
you know,
necessarily.
I would still be doing it if I enjoyed the other crap. The 45 minutes I'm on stage are a joy, but
Right.
everything leading up to that, 23 hours and 15 minutes are just sheer hell.
I'm
So
sorry, man.
it was no, I mean, there are guys out there who love everything about it. They love being on the road, they love flying, they love going to
Traveling
they
and
love traveling, they love living in filthy apartments that the club gives you. I don't like any of that. You know,
right.
I don't like to travel. I don't like my home is immaculate and it's very, it was featured on television and it's very palatial. And I don't want to live in some shithole, you know?
Right. No, I hear that. I hear that. You
Yeah.
know, it's I was at a one of these conventions, these horror movie celebrity conventions this weekend, and they're asking one of the actors something about you know, because they haven't been in the show. It was from the interviewing the cast of the show Dexter, and one of them said something about you can do what you could do what you enjoy, but you or you can do what brings you joy. It's not always necessarily one and the same. He made it. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, it's just like some people, it can be one and the same, but not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Doing stand up did not bring me joy. I did enjoy doing it, but it didn't bring me joy. Writing brought me joy. I sit home by myself. I mean, I've written on several TV shows, but
Right.
it's always on staff. And when you're on staff, it's y- it's not your vision. You have to acquiesce, and the seven guys are sitting in a room. Everybody wants their joke to get into the script, so it's very competitive. Um,
It's not necessarily a brainstorming thing, it's more of like a
Competition.
yeah.
There are shows where it is a collaborative effort and people get along. I just happen to have experienced the other kind. Um, but when I'm writing my plays, I've written 8 plays, and when I'm writing the plays, I'm sitting here in my office. That's where we are now. I sit here in my office and I write for 4 hours. Nobody tells me when to stop or what to write.
No gun in your mouth?
No gun in my mouth,
Yeah,
and yeah, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that.
it's no, that I'm glad it's not, and you could do it anytime you want when you're
As
there.
a matter of fact, while I was waiting for you, I was rewriting a play that we're going to do a staged reading of next month.
I'm sorry if I interrupted with the show.
No, no, no. I
I'm
was I was waiting for you, and I figure, well, since I'm sitting here,
kill some time.
kill some times, and I'm always punching up a script, always making it better, tightening it.
Yeah.
I always say writing is rewriting.
Yes, yes, I wanna just quick I was just first I was just saying my friend CJ said, "My home is my bubble." You're absolutely right. See, I wanna just mention something. When I do my video editing, one of my things working from home is sitting at a cafe and working. Because you know how some people go to college and the way they study, they either sit in a crowded cafe or and they study, or they go to the library with complete silence.
Yeah,
I work better when I'm editing in a cafe because the traffic around me gets me more focused. If I'm sitting at home, I get more distracted with something else I
I'm
wanna do.
exactly the opposite.
I know, everybody's different, but it's
Exactly the opposite.
yeah.
Have to be in a cave by myself with no distractions. Um, I wrote a Candid Camera, one of the Candid Camera iterations, and they had us in a big pit, a big room where everyone was in the same room, the producers, the writers, the editors, who were all, and there was nothing but tumult around me at all times. I couldn't
Is
I
that
couldn't
Yiddish? Or is tumult is Yiddish, or is that an English word?
I don't know. I think it's an English word.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard. I guess I haven't heard in a while, so it may have sounded like Yiddish to me.
Well, I don't know. We could look it up.
Yeah, well, why do I say, "What if nothing nice to say, say it in Yiddish"? I don't know who said that, but I love that line. I
Uh,
do. Oh, sorry. Continue.
um, yeah, I need to be alone. But I wanted to talk to CJ about his improv.
Yes, he actually asked something. He said, "Steve, well, he asked you, I guess, for his. He says, what entertains you these days? What makes you laugh?" But you could get to that after.
Well, I was in those beginning years of the Comedy Store. There was something called the Comedy Store Players, and in that group was Pat Proft, Bo Capo, Gary Austin, Carol White, and myself. Now, Gary Austin left the group to form an improv workshop, and I joined Gary's workshop to, just to keep my chops up. And that workshop became the Groundlings.
Wow.
And so I was in the very first show that the Groundlings did. Me and Archie Hahn and Valerie Curtin and Lorraine Newman and Tracy Newman and Candy Clark. And we were all in that first group.
Wow. You also, what was it? You worked with Seals and Croft, didn't you, on one of their
Yeah,
tours?
I was, so, show business is so incestuous. I went to Emerson College. One of my close friends at Emerson was Susan Hertzberg, who later went on to be Susan Joseph. And we were living in New York City, and she called me up one night. She said, "Come on, I'm going to take you to see Seals and Croft." And I said, "What's a Seals and Croft?" And she said, "Come, I'll show you." So we went down to Greenwich Village, and maybe it was the Village.
I know where that is.
Yeah, one of the one of the coffee houses,
There's a lot of those around there, yeah.
and it was in a back room, and the
Really?
audience sat on the floor, and there were about 75 people there, and Seals and Croft played, and I was completely mesmerized. And Susan said, "What do you think?" And I said, "They're incredible." And she says, "I'm going to work for them." She was a secretary at IFA at the time, and IFA
Wow.
was one of the big talent agencies, right?
I know, yeah.
So she became friends with Marcia Day, that was Seals and Croft's manager. So sure enough, Susan got to work for Marcia Day as her assistant as manager for Seals and Croft, and she moved to California. And because Susan moved to California, I moved to California to be with her. And we became, and I got to know all the families, Dash's family, and then they had Summer Breeze, and it was a huge hit.
Yeah, Summer Breeze.
And they got a
Breeze
booking
Vegas.
in Las Vegas, and Marcia Day said to me, "Do you want to open for them?" And I went, "Yeah," but I mean, that's how incestuous the business is. In order to get a job, you have to know everybody. And so I did, and then it went so well that, well, the thing was, I remember so vividly. I was so nervous for that first show, but all the Seals and Crofts family was out there. Ruby, Jimmy Seals' wife, Ruby Seals, was in the audience. And Billy Crofts, Dash's wife at the time, and all the sisters of the Marcia Day's kids, they were all out there. And when I came out, they gave a big cheer, and it just like boosted me up, I knew someone was rooting
Adrenaline, like an adrenaline rush.
and I knew someone was out there rooting for me, and so it went great. So then Marcia said, "You want to go on tour with them?" And that was a dream come true. And
It's a
we
god, yeah, it's a godsend.
went all over
Wow.
the country. Even at and to tell you how close we got, uh, one night Jimmy said, "Do you want to do the finale?" And I said, "Sure." And they dragged me on, and I sang backup, with
Wow.
yeah, with the girls. It was it was amazing. It was amazing times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I,
Priceless memories, priceless, not just memories, they're probably
you
priceless
know what else is funny?
parts of your
Strange
piece of your
is
life.
that
Yeah.
I started working in Vegas a lot. I worked for Donna Summer and Barry Manilow, Melissa
Wow.
Manchester, Frankie Valli,
Wow.
Seals and Crofts, just on and on. And I would go from hotel to hotel, being the opening act. And one night, while opening for Donna Summer, I told a joke. The audience laughed, and in my head, I said, "If they find out I don't know what I'm doing, they'll run me out of town." I had no idea. You know what I'm saying? There I was doing it, still so insecure that I thought I that I didn't know what I was doing, even though I was doing it.
Can I say something? I think a lot of us, whether we realize it or not, feel that way sometimes. Like, not just it's not just, yeah, our own being our own critic. Where like it's like we doubt ourselves when we don't even think we even when we are already being success, progressing and being successful and reaching our goals or
Well,
dreams or
I'll tell you
the
something,
process.
Bruce. I'll tell you something Bruce Valanche told me, which is, in order to be a huge star,
Mhm.
not a working actor, but a mega star, you have to have the ability to step over your mother's corpse to get on stage. Nothing can stop you. And when you think about the people who have become, Streisand, Cher, Bette Midler, Barry Manilow, how big they became. They became
Yeah.
that big because nothing was going to stop them. You know.
The performing arts. Um, I guess that for the performing arts, I have no doubt that's true, but I guess depending on, for the technical field, it might be a little different, but obviously you have to be driven, you have to be devoted, you have to be passionate 100%. You want to be passionate. I just want to say, CJ did say improv has really helped me out a lot. It helps having stage presence while learning to practice stand up.
Who are you learning with? Who's teaching?
I'll wait for he'll respond. I just
Yeah.
while I'm waiting for him, I just want to mention I've been writing a book on Tourette's for like the last 10 years. I stopped. I not stopped. I finished the first draft in 2016 because it's like a memoir. It's taking my experiences to help people not just with Tourette's but any type of
Mhm.
struggle in terms of like any or lack of hope or feel of hopelessness, pain, loneliness, bullying, which is all of them I felt. But like somebody said to me, writing is rewriting. And I have a friend who is an artist who's going to do the cover artwork for me. And originally the name I came up with for the book, which I know the name you usually come up with later, was The Gift of Gabe. And it's interesting, I know, but like she said to me, you don't want to have your name, like you said, like you don't want to have gun in the from a marketing perspective. You
Well,
don't
yeah,
want to put your own name.
think that there are a million books out there, and what's going to make a reader stop at your book and think, "Well, what's this?" You know,
Yeah. Unless I use a ghostwriting name, I'm not gonna but The Gift of Gabe is
the
creative. It's a
gift
play
of
word.
Gabe doesn't say it's a book about Tourette's.
Yeah, no,
Read
100.
it.
You're right. You're right.
It only says that to you because you know what the book's about. You have
Yeah.
to have something that projects to the reader what the book is about.
And this generation doesn't know the gift of gab really. So it's like even if the reference, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily get it.
Mm.
But yeah, also from a marketing perspective, she said you don't want to put your own name in the title. I wasn't. I'm still winging CJ's answer. I know we're coming close to the end. But
Oh,
I'm
thank
just gonna
God.
give what? Oh god, yeah, I know. At least nobody's booing you here. No, I mean, can I tell you something? we appreciate you here, and also, you know, you're a lot of people who watch this or come on here like get to learn. It's almost like you're teaching them by proxy in a sense.
All right,
And
good.
here's yeah, CJ says, teaching myself. I work at a local theater running the booth. I have been watching stand-ups for the last year. The stage started calling me to start doing stand-up.
You can't teach yourself to do improv. You can't be objective. You don't know. There are definite rules to doing improv, and unless someone teaches you those rules, you can't do it. And watching the problem with stand up today is my generation, we watched the people who came up before us, and they watched the people that came up before them.
Yeah.
And those people learned show business in vaudeville. They had to do everything. They had to be a singer, they had to be a dancer, they had to know timing, they had to and that got passed down. When television came and the comedy channel came, people started copying each other. So nobody sounds different. I can tell you if an actor has done stand up just by the way they talk, because we learned from masters, but today people are learning from each other. And what happens is everybody sounds the same. Everybody delivers the same. Everybody has the same attitude. Everybody talks about the same things. My crotch, my relationship, my dick. I mean, that's all they're talking about. And if you want to be successful, you have to say something. You have to make the audience remember you. You have to stick out from the crowd. And that's not happening today. Certain people come along, that are wonderful. In the,
Diamond in the rough.
no, I mean, there's not diamond in the rough. I mean, a diamond like
Oh,
John Mullally. I can never remember John Mullally. The guy who had the drug problem. He got married, then he got divorced, and then he has a new
a lot
girlfriend.
of people.
He's just brilliant. I could watch him do stand up for 6 hours, and I was
No bathroom breaks.
I was the judge for the Coachella Valley um,
Oh, really?
comedy festival, and so that people were submitting tapes to me, to the committee. I was one of several on the committee.
Grew up CJ Stewart grew He said he grew up with Louis Anderson, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy, and Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, well, those aren't improv actors. Those are
Yeah. Sean Smith, John Mulaney, was that
yes,
it?
yes. Thank
I
you.
Yeah.
I love that you have an audience that participates. No one participates in my on my talk show. They just listen. But
Sometimes it's better that way, they don't talk back to you.
yeah, no, at least it gives you something to spring off of. But
Yeah.
like I was saying, everyone sounds the same now, and it's sad. And we talk about it. We talk about it all the time about amongst the comedians, how
Yeah.
everybody sounds the same. It's sad.
No, I hear you. You mentioned. I just want to before we close. I want to. I just want to touch on one thing you said. You said like the people today listen to the people. Like it was almost like a hereditary. It's almost like a non-biological hereditary performing arts. In the performing arts DNA, I guess you could say. Like it's almost passed backward. It was passed down, that approach to watching that person and listening and watching to that person, and from that generation and that generation all the way back to vaudeville. So it's almost like a hereditary approach to the performing arts. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess just my little analogy I thought of. um
Well, good for you.
oh, thank you. I'll pat myself on the back. Steve, so you mentioned your YouTube channel. Can you, any social media, or in addition to the YouTube channel, just one last thing. CJ said, I
Okay.
practice with improv groups, learning to do stand up. Thanks for all the advice. He really appreciates it.
Oh, that's sweet. He's got CJ, a great show again, and great.
Yeah.
CJ has a very commercial look, and he would do well in LA. You and I should stay in New York because we are not commercial. You and I are ethnic. They call that ethnic, and that's. It took me almost 20 years to realize that what they were saying was I wasn't white. You know, I always thought I was white, but I'm not white. I'm ethnic.
I'm Dorito, apparently, with
Yeah.
the Dorito.
So,
So what social media platforms can people follow you on? Please do mention the
yes,
YouTube thing
Facebook.
again.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on YouTube. I'm on what's the other one?
Instagram?
Instagram. I'm on everything.
And it's just usually Steve Bluestein.
Right.
Just and the YouTube, your show, what was the name of
The
the
name of the show is
just for everybody who
Let Me Say This About That.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Steve, it was a pleasure having you on.
It was a
Um,
pleasure to be here.
I look forward. Gotta check out your book and or books. Sorry, what was you said
So I have 3 books.
3 books. Right.
One's called Memoir of a Nobody. The second one is Take My Prostate, Please. And the third one is called The Point of Pines. And that's a very introspective book about my growing up years, growing up homeless, and explains why I have to live in 4,000 square feet.
Well, that's quite the step. That's quite the massive step. Or
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I love to hear that coming from something from nothing, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a pleasure having you on, Steve.
Thank you.
And may this year be a best one for us all. And sei gesund, as I like to say.
Yeah, and wear a mask.
Yes. Don't want to be a mask hole. Take care, man. All the
Take
best.
it easy.
It's been a
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Bye.